Good afternoon, everybody, and welcome back to I Know History or Do I? And I am your host, Rebecca, and you will definitely know me from my other YouTube channel called Red True Crime. So I am also Rebecca from Red True Crime. So I've been working on this history channel for a little bit, trying to get topics and whatnot, but then the crime one always takes precedence because those are a little bit different. A lot of that stuff is pending doom, so to speak. So, but with everything going on in Venezuela, I'd already been working on this piece. So I will come back and do one about coup d'etats. But today we are going to talk about the dark history of U.S. presidential assassinations and the attempts. Because I was thinking about it the other day, or actually about a month ago, I should say. And it helps that Netflix had released a movie called Death by Lightning, and it talks about in more of a dramatized, comedic almost, um, story of how James Garfield was assassinated not long after he became president. And, I was watching that, and it got me thinking because I keep forgetting James Garfield was one of our presidents that had been assassinated. So the question is, do you know how many US presidents have actually been assassinated? So think on that because we're going to dive deep into the stories. And these assassinations actually help shape our world. And today we're tackling that chilling chapter in American history. So we're talking from misfired pistols to rooftop snipers. These events have tested the resilience of democracy itself. And if you watch Death by Lightning, you would see what I'm talking about. It's on Netflix. So give me a moment. We're going to get back and we're going to get into this. And it's going to be a little bit of a long one. All right, guys. So thank you for being with me today. So if you're really into history and if you want to know like the ins and outs of some of these situations, hit subscribe, share, like, comment, all that good stuff because I'm going live on Facebook. I do have the YouTube channel for this particular topic, but I don't have enough people subscribed to go live from it yet. So, like I said, if you like what I'm saying and if you really enjoy history, go ahead and like and subscribe and comment and share and all the good stuff. Okay. So, did you know there have been not one, not two, because usually when you ask anybody on the street how many US presidents have been assassinated, they almost always say two. And if you ask, do you know what two? They always say Lincoln, Abraham Lincoln, and John F. Kennedy. So, and they're right. That is two of the four that have been assassinated in this country. So, four have been killed, and there have been over a dozen serious attempts on others. Some on presidents elect, some on former presidents running for office again, or even a prominent candidate. So, it goes on and on. And these acts are usually driven by personal grudges, political ideologies, or just sheer madness. And if you see some of the photos of the assassins or attempted assassins, you could just see that these guys were not playing with a full deck. So, and some of this stuff, some of the assassinations that took place did alter the nation for for the future. It really did when they did that. So we're going to walk through them chronologically and exploring who, what, why, and the lasting impacts. So let's get down to it. So our first president, we're gonna like I said, we're gonna go in chronological order. So the first was not even an attempt; it was an actual full blown. Actually, I take that back. It was an attempt. I'm off today. So we are going to add one Andrew Jackson to the stand. Woo-hoo. Okay. So our story begins in the early days of the Republic on January 30th, 1835. Andrew Jackson, the seventh president known as Old Hickory, look at him, for his tough as nails persona, was attending a funeral at the U.S. Capitol in Washington, D.C. Now, as he exited, an unemployed house painter named Richard Lawrence stepped out and from behind a pillar fired two pistols at point blank range. Miraculously, both guns misfired due to damp weather, so President Jackson was unharmed. Enraged, the 67-year-old president charged at Lawrence with his cane, beating him. Actually, we got a picture right here. Boom. Beating him. Um, let's see, where did it go? Yeah, beating him until aides intervened. So he was smacking at him until his aides came and, intervened in the whole thing. Lawrence was a delusional Englishman, and he believed Jackson had killed his father and blocked him from becoming king of England. Yeah, so he definitely had some psychiatric issues. He was declared insane and spent the rest of his life in an asylum. But this near assassination highlighted the vulnerabilities of early presidential security because they didn't have the Secret Service even then. They had basically just military guards. And I mean, there was no Secret Service, and it set a precedent for the dangers leaders face. But Jackson lived on to complete his term, dying naturally in 1845. So our next president is one Mr. Abraham Lincoln. So now Abraham Lincoln was the first successful assassination in this country. So we're going to fast forward to the end of the Civil War on April 14th, 1865, just days after Confederate surrender. President Abraham Lincoln attended a play at Ford's Theater in Washington, D.C. And that was just to unwind because, it had been a long 4 years of battle. Enter John Wilkes Booth, famous actor and fervent Confederate sympathizer who despised Lincoln's emancipation laws, especially those of the slaves. So Booth snuck into the presidential box and shot Lincoln in the back of the head with a Derringer pistol, shouting "Sic semper tyrannis," Latin for "thus always to tyrants." Now Lincoln he didn't die right away. He lingered for at least a day, and he was dead the next morning on April 15th, becoming the first assassinated U.S. president. Now Booth fled, but was cornered in Virginia and was shot dead. This tragedy plunged the nation into mourning and chaos during Reconstruction. And, Reconstruction being the period of rebuilding in the South after immediately after the Civil War. It also led the execution of 4 co-conspirators who targeted other officials. Lincoln's death immortalized him as a martyr for unity and freedom, but it left a divided America struggling to heal. So those conspirators, just to throw a little story, there's a movie out. It came out at least 10 years ago, and it has what is his name? Great actor. Can't think of his name off the life of me. He was in Split. He played the main guy in Split. Um, James McAvoy. That's it. That guy. He the movie it's called The Conspirator, and it talks about the Lincoln assassination, and it brings in the whole story about people involved, where they planned it, and James McAvoy plays a Union soldier. This is again after the war, and he's being tapped by a senator saying, "Hey, I need you to represent this woman in the trial because they're doing a military tribunal." And her name was Mary, and she ended up being the first woman ever executed under a military tribunal in the US. So they hung her and 3 others. And what's sad was it was her son that was part of the conspiracy to plot the assassination of Lincoln and several cabinet members. It was just her boarding house they did it at, but they still prosecuted her, and her son never got prosecuted. In fact, he ended up, doing a little bit of jail time and then going on with the rest of his life. So that is John Wilkes Booth. Let's see, let me put my glasses back on so I can see what I'm doing here. Uh, Now, the next one would be Monsieur James Garfield. Let me get him. Remove. So James Garfield will be our next president that we are going to discuss. Let me get him on here really quick. This is James Garfield. He was our next president to be successfully assassinated. Now, this took place in 1881. Now, what's interesting, I mentioned the movie Death by Lightning, and that is about his particular assassination, and the whole thing was just crazy. If everything they follow is correct, let me say that, um, because the person who killed him was somebody who idolized him. So this guy right here. So on July 2nd, 1881, marked another dark day. President James A. Garfield, only 4 months into his term, was at a Washington, D.C. train station heading to a vacation when Charles Guiteau approached. Guiteau, a deranged office seeker, bitter over not getting a diplomatic post, shot Garfield twice in the back with a revolver. Now, Garfield lingered on for 79 days, suffering from infections due to poor medical practices like doctors probing wounds with unsterilized fingers, massive infections. He died on September 19th. Now, Guiteau claimed divine inspiration and was hanged in 1882. This assassination exposed the corrupt spoils system. So, Garfield was a president that did not believe in basically hiring your friends. It's the best way I can put it. Um, he was somebody who was very, very, he was fair-minded. He believed in, giving African Americans the right to vote and giving them more advantages and just trying to make the world a fairer place. He did not believe in spoils of policies and none of that. He hated fraud, he hated people who had their hands in the cookie jar. He was just a very, very tight, morally sound man. And, it's a shame we never did see what was gonna happen with his presidency because he died so new into it. So, but like I said, Guiteau claimed divine inspiration, and when he was hanged in 1882. So, his assassination had exposed the corrupt spoil system of political appointments and spurred civil service reforms under successor Chester A. Arthur. Now, Garfield's brief presidency is often overlooked, but his death pushed America toward a more merit based government. So basically, get the position on your merits. Simple as that. But yeah, it's like I said, look at this guy's eyes. I mean, he looks deranged. He really does. And it's so scary looking because the guy who played him in the movie, he's a British actor. I think his name is Matthew McFadden. Interesting guy, great actor. I've seen him in a few things. And let me tell you, he plays this guy so well. It is unbelievable how well he plays this guy. And I was like literally believing, um, this is how this person acted. Like he legit was nuts. And but we shall see what the stories say about this. Let's see. So our next president is William McKinley. Yes, William McKinley. So this happened in 1901. So turn of the century, September 6th, 1901. President William McKinley, fresh off a re-election and the Spanish-American War victory. So he's riding high. Was shaking hands at the Pan American Exposition in Buffalo, New York. Now, um, Leon, and I can't pronounce it. I believe it's I want to say it's Polish. Leon Siglaus, an anarchist inspired by European radicals, concealed a revolver in a handkerchief and shot McKinley twice in the abdomen. So, shot him twice. Now we do have a cartoon or a drawing of what happened. Let me find it here real quick because again, I think a few of these presidents now, granted Lincoln was shot in the head, but Garfield and McKinley, I do believe would have survived due to better medical care if we had it, for these people at that time because, They do put in the movie with Garfield and about the death by lightning that the only doctor available at the time of when he was, shot was a black doctor, and he got him, stabilized, but, the other doctors kept digging in there and digging in there, and it's which is what ended up killing him. So here is a picture, a drawing of McKinley, being drawn on by the anarchists, getting shot twice in the stomach. So McKinley seemed to recover at first from the gunshot, but then he succumbed to gangrene on September 14th. So the anarchist was executed by electric chair just weeks later. So imagine a lot of these people, we had death penalty, but we didn't have them lingering for appeals and all. None of that existed yet. So imagine that these guys were like, you kill somebody, you're dead within a year, if that, if not weeks. So, but he was electrocuted by in the electric chair weeks later, and the event propelled Vice President Theodore Roosevelt into office. Yes, Theodore Roosevelt. Now, and interestingly enough, he is also on this list, not for getting killed, but almost. So let me bring him up here. Yeah, for whatever reason, people took a couple shots at Roosevelt. So not sure what it was about him that set people off, but they didn't like him for whatever reason. So let's see, that's not him. That's not him. There he is. Okay. Okay. So with Theodore Roosevelt, though, in office, ushering in a progressive era, it also prompted Congress to assign the Secret Service full time presidential protection, a direct response to growing threats from anarchists and radicals. So we're starting to see more of this towards the early 1900s of like true presidential protection. Okay, so we're going to do a quick pause. And if you're enjoying this deep dive into presidential perils, smash that subscribe button and turn on notifications because we've got more history videos coming your way. But now back to the action. Okay. So Theodore Roosevelt, surviving the bullet. October 14th, 1912. Former President Theodore Roosevelt's campaigning as a third party candidate in Milwaukee, Wisconsin. He was shot in the chest by John Schrank, a saloon keeper haunted by visions of the late President McKinley urging him to act. Are you seeing a common theme here? Like most of these people who have done this have some type of mental issue. Just saying. Now, the bullet passed through Roosevelt's 50-page speech and eyeglass case, lodging in his muscle but missing vital organs. Incredibly, Theodore Roosevelt proceeded to deliver a 90-minute speech declaring it takes more than that to kill a bull moose. He survived after treatment and finished second in the election. Schrank was institutionalized until his death in 1943. Now, this near assassination showcased Roosevelt's legendary toughness and highlighted the risks of open campaigning in an era of political fervor. Okay, so who is next? We got another Roosevelt for you. Let's see, let me find him. One Mr. Franklin Delano Roosevelt. He was dodging bullets as a president elect. So on February 15th, 1933, weeks before his inauguration, President elect Franklin D. Roosevelt gave a speech from a car in Miami, Florida. Giuseppe Zangara, an Italian immigrant plagued by chronic pain and hatred for wealthy, fired 5 shots from a wobbly chair. He missed FDR, but fatally wounded Chicago Mayor Anton Cermak and injured 4 others. And of course, as we go with the theme on this, the assassin was ended very quickly. So let me find a picture of him. I believe this was him right here. No, it was this guy right here. Right there. So that is him. Motivated by anarchist leanings, Zangara's attempts came amid the Great Depression despair. Now, FDR went on to lead through the New Deal and World War II, but this close call underscored the volatility of the times. So Okay. Next on our list, another near miss. Where is he? That's not him. That's not him. Well, anyway, I'll find him here in just a second. But we are going to be talking about Mr. Harry S. Truman. Um, great president, nice guy, built, beat out, had a crazy close election, and I can't find him. I guess I did not get a picture of him. That's not him. That's not him. Where did he go? I apologize, everybody. I thought I had a picture of him in here. I guess I do not. Okay. So anyway, Truman was, let's see, go back to my thing here. So November 1st, 1950, while the White House was under renovation, President Harry S. Truman was napping at Blair House in D.C. when two Puerto Rican nationalists, um, Oscar Collazo and Gracelio Terrasola, stormed the residence with pistols. So those guys, I do have them. That's one right there. So they had stormed, um, where was they? Stormed the residence with pistols to spotlight independence for Puerto Rico. A fierce shootout ensued, and Torresola was killed, and a Secret Service agent died heroically. Truman was unharmed. Now, Collazo, this gentleman right here, was sentenced to death but commuted to life by Truman himself. He was pardoned in 1979. Now, this attempt emphasized emerging threats from colonial grievances and led to enhanced security protocols. And here we go to the next most well known assassination in modern time, the assassination of one John Fitzgerald Kennedy. So on November 22nd, 1963, in Dallas, Texas, John F. Kennedy rode in an open motorcade when Lee Harvey Oswald fired 3 shots from a book depository with a rifle. Now, Kennedy was hit in the neck and the head, dying shortly after. Now, Oswald, a Marxist Marine, which make I don't know how that even happened, was arrested but murdered 2 days later by nightclub owner Jack Ruby. That is Lee Harvey Oswald right there. And this happened on live TV. Now, the Warren Commission concluded Oswald acted alone, but conspiracy theories abound, and JFK's assassination shattered the nation's innocence, influencing the Vietnam War and civil rights under Lyndon Johnson. It remains one of history's most debated events. And I would agree with that because even I do not believe Lee Harvey Oswald acted alone in this. I think there was more people involved, but just my thought. So, and then unfortunately, right after President Kennedy was shot and killed, we have his younger brother, Robert Kennedy, was shot and killed when he was running for president. So on June 5th, 1968, Senator Robert F. Kennedy, a Democratic presidential candidate and brother of JFK, had just won the California primary when Sirhan shot him 3 times at the Ambassador Club. So at the Ambassador Hotel, I'm sorry, in Los Angeles. Now, RFK died. Let's see. Let me find him really quick. RFK died, let's see, the very next day. Now, Sirhan is not in my files. Sirhan literally, was a Palestinian upset over Kennedy's pro-Israel stance, and he was sentenced to life. What's interesting is now here we are again dealing with more, Palestinian Israel back and forth. So it just seems like it just never stopped, you know? So, as far as I know to date, Sirhan is still alive. Okay, now we're gonna get into a little bit more recent time. So now we have Senator George Wallace. In May 15th, 1972, Alabama Governor George Wallace A segregationist Democratic presidential candidate was campaigning in Maryland when Arthur Bremer shot him 4 times, paralyzing him from the waist down. Now, Bremer, seeking fame, was imprisoned until 2007. Now, Wallace survived, but withdrew from the race, and this attempt reflected the era's divisive politics on race and rights. So, there you have it on that one. Next, we have President Gerald Ford. Now, Gerald Ford became president after Richard Nixon resigned from office. So Gerald Ford faced 2 attempts in September 1975. First on the 5th in Sacramento, Lynette Squeaky Fromme made that attempt there. Let me find her real quick. Okay. She was a Manson family member and pointed a pistol at him. It misfired, and she aimed to protest environmental issues and was paroled in 2009. Now, just 17 days later, we have another woman, and like I said, he was not having a good year that year. Um, there we go. A In San Francisco, Sarah Jane Moore fired at Ford but missed. A bystander deflected her second shot. A radical seeking revolution, Moore was paroled in 2007, and Ford's survival highlighted the 1970s radical unrest. So now we get to Mr. Ronald Reagan, or President Ronald Reagan. So on March 30th, 1981, leaving a Washington hotel speech, President Ronald Reagan was shot in the chest by John Hinckley Jr. Now, he fired 6 times to impress actress Jodie Foster. The bullets ricocheted off a limo and punctured Reagan's lung. Um, but when they took Reagan to the hospital, they have surgery on him. He quipped to the surgeons, "I hope you're all Republicans." But he did recover fully. Hinckley was acquitted by insanity and released in 2022. Now, this led to the Brady Bill for gun background checks and improved Secret Service tactics because one of the Secret Service members protecting Reagan was his name was John Brady, and he eventually died because of the injury he sustained from that bullet. But it took a very long time for that to happen. So let's get into our modern attempts. And actually, did I show a picture of Hinckley? Let me show you who this guy looks like. This guy right here. Now he doesn't look like that now. He's much older and much heavier and lives with his mom. Yeah. So in recent decades, threats have escalated. In 1994, Francisco Duran fired 29 rounds at the White House, mistaking a bystander for President Bill Clinton. Clinton was safe inside, but Duran got 40 years. In 2005, during a Georgia visit, Vladimir Arutunian threw a dud grenade at President George W. Bush. No injuries. Barack Obama faced a 2011 attempt when Oscar Ortega Hernandez shot at the White House, believing Obama was the Antichrist. He got sentenced to 25 years. So, as you notice, we stopped executing people attempting assassination. We just, you know, locked them away for a while. Donald Trump, our current sitting president, faced a 2011 attempt. I'm sorry, wrong one, wrong year. Survived 2 in 2024. In July, at a Pennsylvania rally, Thomas Crooks grazed Trump's ear with a rifle shot, killing one attendee. Now, Crooks was killed by agents. And in September, Ryan Routh was arrested near Trump's Florida golf course with a rifle and motives tied to political tensions. But these incidents show evolving threats, from lone wolves to ideological extremists, with technology aiding detection. Let's see. So, as we think back on this, from Jackson's misfire to Trump's rally chaos, these assassinations and near misses remind us of democracy's fragility. They're spurred They've spurred Secret Service expansions from 1901 protections to today's advanced countermeasures. Yet, in a polarized world, vigilance remains key. So what do you think? Has security improved enough? Drop your thoughts, through your comments, put them all in there. And if this video gripped you, like, share, and subscribe for more history. But thanks for watching. Stay curious, stay safe, and see you next time.